The free play ticket wins a $12.5 million jackpot in the Super 7 draw. It's a Christmas miracle.
Sometimes you just hold your nose and you give the $12.5 million away.
They stashed the money in more than 20 bank accounts, including those in the name of individuals, companies, and trusts. And part of the prize money was moved to a bank in South Korea.
It's like almost like Cinderella. It all falls apart for them.
Hello and welcome. My name is Josh Sager.
My name is Garth Sharif.
And you're listening to The Fraud Complex, a podcast where we unpack wild true crime fraud stories without murders. Picture this. You buy a lottery ticket. It wins a free play. And that free play hits a $12.5 million jackpot. Sounds like the ultimate stroke of luck, right? Now, what if you never even knew you won because the store owner who checked your ticket kept the winning free play for themselves? For 7 years, the rightful winners had no clue they were millionaires, while the family lived lavishly on stolen money, buying mansions and luxury cars. Join us as we unravel this astounding true-life story of a lotto scandal that gripped Canada, revealed how system vulnerability led to audacious fraud, and how an ordinary group of friends eventually reclaimed their destiny. So that's what's in store. But first, Garth, I just want to check in with you because in the last episode, you signed off saying you were about to write your certified fraud examiner's exam. And if you didn't bring it up, it didn't go well. But I'm bringing it up. So let's tell our listeners, how did it go?
Yeah, well, thanks, Josh. This is a really good way to start it off because I'm already upset about the scandal because I would not have been happy to learn that I won $12.5 million, but didn't actually receive it until 7 years later. But certified fraud examiner, I am.
Hey!
I did it.
Congratulations! We're live, we're in person, we can high five in real life.
Yeah, that's actually true. We are live. And that was, that happened. We touched hands. Yes, the certified fraud examiner exam, I passed. The course offered by the American Certified Fraud Examiners was amazing. It was run by John Gill, the president, and it was Beth Mara, another co-instructor. Great stories. It was really freaking intense.
We believed in you. Our listeners believed in you.
Really? This is good. This is probably why I passed. There was this belief in me that I didn't know that was just around me. I didn't know, to be honest with you. When I took this course in Washington, D.C., I thought it was one exam at the end of the 4 days that you're learning for 8 hours each day. But it was an exam at the end of each day of the 4 days. There were 4 exams, 2 hours each. So that was a bit of a shocker.
Well, it was all worth it. You got a fancy new logo, the fraud examiner's logo.
And I can call people fraudsters now. Just if I just have the inkling, I can just say you're fraud. Because that's part of the license. No, I'm just joking.
You're an official fraud. You can title as you see fit. All right. Now let me walk you through this story. Our sources, by the way, we're going to link them below, but they include the CBC documentary series, The Fifth Estate, for their episodes Lucky 7, as well as reporting on the case from the Toronto Sun. December 19th, it's Christmas time. December 2003. Dan Campbell, construction worker, on behalf of himself and 6 co-workers, purchases a Super 7 random quick pick lottery ticket in St. Catharines, Ontario, just outside Toronto. And then a few days later, Dan Campbell checks his tickets at a Variety Plus convenience store in Burlington, also nearby, a convenience store managed by Kenneth Chung, whose father, Jun Chul Chung, also works there. Now, one of Campbell's tickets wins a free play ticket for an upcoming draw. He actually won 5 free play tickets, but the clerk only gave him 4. So that missing ticket, he was only given 4 of the 5 free play tickets he was entitled to. The 5th, which turned out to be the winning ticket, is the one that was retained by the clerk, by the Chung family. Right after Christmas, in Canada's Boxing Day, December 26th, the free play ticket wins a $12.5 million jackpot in the Super 7 draw. It's a Christmas miracle. Shortly after, a woman later identified as Kathleen Chung telephones the OLG, that's the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Commission, claiming the prize for her brother, who she says was the owner of the winning ticket. So Dan Campbell, the guy who rightfully owns this ticket, he has no idea he's won the lottery. Kathleen Chung who called the Lotto Commission. Her story was a little fuzzy at first. At first, she said like she was claiming the prize for her brother. It was a confusing and vague story about where and when she purchased the initial ticket that yielded a free play. And she denied having a brother, but later admitted her brother managed the store where the winning ticket was validated.
Okay.
So like she was going back and forth. I have a brother. I don't have a brother. They also knew her father worked there. So this raised all these red flags for the OLG investigators. The investigators even asked her to take a lie detector test, which she initially agreed to, but then she changed her mind and she refused. So what did OLG do? They knew something was fishy, but they ended up just stalling. And, it wasn't until almost like a year later that they eventually surrendered and paid out $12.5 million to Kathleen Chung, with one official reportedly stating in an internal memo, sometimes you just hold your nose. So
Sometimes you just hold your nose.
that was the
Is that a
state.
saying?
That was the state of how they
What is that?
they did business
That's
back
interesting
in
way to
2003.
put it. Sometimes you just hold your nose and you give the $12.5 million away.
Yeah.
Because there is a connection to Variety Plus. It's one of the generic variety names that we'll probably forget it again. Variety Plus.
Yeah.
But I don't know that OLG rules, Ontario Lottery and Gaming Association, but my thought would be if you own a variety store, convenience store, and you sell lotto tickets, you cannot win the lottery because you could game it.
This is absolutely the crux of the problem. And this is back in 2003. And so this case is actually going to lead to a whole bunch of changes at the Ontario Lottery Commission. But before we get to that, I just want to say, Garth, what do you think the Chung family did with that money, that $12.5 million that belonged to this guy, Dan Campbell, and his 6 buddies?
Here's the thing. I'm going to bring a different perspective here. A lot of immigrants own these convenience stores. So I have a little bit of empathy here because it is one way to sort of build an entrepreneurship as a family from another country. And then maybe you have that store and it's generational. So I would like to think, because I still don't understand exactly what happened with that 5th lottery ticket, if they knew, but I'm sure we will find that out. I'm going to say $12.5 million. I forget if I should know this as a CPA, if it's taxed or not. I believe in Canada they tax the lottery. I'm not sure. But let's just say it's $12.5 million. I'm always trying to do things with a good heart. They know they've done something wrong. They know they've taken this lottery ticket. So they decide to take the $12.5 million, put a portion into a fund that helps immigrants coming to Canada land on their feet. This is what happened, Josh. Again, I'm going to demand this happen. And I'd say 30%, 32%. Another 30% are the children involved in the Chung family.
So there are adult children. So the dad who worked as the clerk, his son owns or he manages the Variety Plus store. And then the daughter of the manager's sister also is part of this.
Gosh, we're going to need one of the family trees here. But there's there's adult children, but there's no children.
There's no like little kids
Okay.
that
Okay. So 32% helping immigrants.
Yeah.
53% giving back to family in maybe other parts of Canada if they have them there, or in other parts where they're originally from that need the money, and that's what they really wanted to do with the convenience store in the first place, is to make sure everyone in the family is taken care of. What is that? Is it 85%? And 15% for a little bit for themselves. A little bit of renovations to Variety Plus. A little bit more lighting.
Just use
maybe
practical.
add more of the product. That's how it happened. I feel better about it. Thanks,
Very
Josh.
generous assessment. Go ahead and open images 1 and 2.
Am I going to see the immigrants that were benefited by the money that went their way? Oh,
It's not looking.
this is a house for orphans that they started. I'm looking at an image of a very large house with 3 garages. Is it garages? Lots of garage. A white car outside. It looks very big, like a castle, but it's, it's a big house. And by the way, if this is happening in Ontario, in 2003, maybe the real estate isn't so bad. but it's not going to be cheap. What I'm looking at.
So 12.5 million Canadians, about 10 million US. Kathleen Chung bought a $2 million mansion that backed onto a golf course. She later indicated that some of the proceeds were used to help purchase multi-million-dollar mansions in Oakville and Thornhill, regions around Toronto, as well as other residential and commercial properties. The family also acquired a little fleet of fancy cars and several luxury cars.
You said fleet?
A fleet.
The word
More
fleet.
than, I don't know what a fleet implies, if it's probably more than 3, I would guess.
I would say more than 3
Yeah.
qualify as a fleet.
Kathleen Chung purchased eye-popping jewelry and clothes. In the OLG lawsuit, documents generally stated they acquired a lot of luxuries. But to be fair, this is a family from South Korea. They stashed the money in more than 20 bank accounts, including those individuals, companies, and trusts. And part of the prize money was moved to a bank in South Korea. So it's very possible that money went back home to help some family members, perhaps. We don't know.
But it does seem a lot of it went to...
A lot of it went to the types of things you would think of when you think of someone who won a lotto ticket.
Yeah, the house, jewelry. Okay, all right. Well, that changes a little bit of it. But they did send some money back to South Korea. I'm not validating what they did, but I want to reserve judgment until we figure it out.
We don't know where that...
Because I still don't know what
Yes,
happened. Because, I know you're going to get to this, how this happened, if they actually knew the ticket was the winning ticket. But because maybe they just took the free ticket and it just happened to be, which would be, I think, very unlikely, but I'm hoping the best for the Chung family.
Yeah, we will cover that. But meanwhile, we're going to shift ahead 3 years. Okay. So this is 2006. The Ontario Lottery Board believes Kathleen Chung jackpot issue is behind them. But then in early 2007, the lottery fiasco unfolds as a lotto ticket purchaser named Bob Edmonds publicly claims he was ripped off of a $250,000 lottery ticket prize by a crooked storekeeper. This story set up this widespread suspicion about lotteries and prompted Ontario's ombudsman, an official who investigates complaints, particularly regarding public organizations, to uncover systemic issues and ensure accountability. They appointed this guy, Andre Marin, who launches an investigation into the lotto windfalls. Then there's a report later that year that highlighted the $12.5 million Boxing Day jackpot. Right. So back to Kathleen, this was considered one of the more shocking cases, criticizing the OLG for paying out Kathleen Chung, despite the serious suspicions about her affiliation with a retailer and misrepresentation. So David, Kaplan, the Ontario Minister for Lotteries, he promises action. He hands over suspicious lotto files to the Ontario Provincial Police, the OPP, and the OPP began investigating the case, questioning Kathleen Chung. And reporters from the Fifth Estate, the Canadian documentary series, also met informally with John Chul Chung, Kathleen's father, to clarify her early statements to the OLG. So 3 years later,
3 years later? What do you mean 3 years later from the 3 years later?
Yeah. So
wow. Okay. All right.
The original tickets were sold in 2003. In September 2010, finally, June Chul Chung, Kathleen Chung, and Kenneth Chung are charged with fraud and money laundering in connection with the $12.5 million winning ticket from 2003. So let me just clarify what happened. So the original guy who bought the lotto ticket, he basically cashed this ticket in. Dan Campbell was his name. And they said, oh, you won 4 free tickets. He actually won 5 free tickets. So they held on to one. They didn't know.
Oh, they didn't know. So
this is the winning lotto.
This is so interesting. They didn't know.
But it points to what later came out, which was a pattern of holding on to tickets over about an 8-month period.
So this is interesting.
In a way, they were still gambling. They didn't know this was
interesting.
They genuinely won the lottery in a sense because they've been banking on all these maybe winning some smaller prizes over the years, things like that. They didn't know.
They didn't know.
Maybe they wouldn't have it would have cast all kinds of suspicion on them if you win a big jackpot like that, right? But when they found out, I don't know. If it was me, I would be tempted.
It would, because we talked about the fraud risk triangle, right? Because the rationalization there is they didn't know the ticket. It's not like they had like this happens sometimes with elderly people. They'll this maybe in the past, no longer. Hopefully they will clear this up. But you take a ticket, they don't use the scanner. You look at their numbers, and because they can't read it, and you're like, oh, this person hit, and you say, no, sorry, you didn't hit, and they don't put it through the machine.
Yeah.
That's really with intent. Here, they are holding back a ticket. And what are the chances that it's going to land in 12.5 million? It's still wrong, but this is a little more complicated.
Yeah, it's
because I'm pretty sure they never thought that would happen. They thought maybe $1,000 or something like that.
There, maybe, but they were faced with the decision, and they worked as a family. Kathleen decided she was brought in because she had the least connection, I think, to the Prime store. She didn't work there.
Right.
Her brother managed it. Her dad worked there.
Yeah, I'm going to let you do all the work here. I have so many questions because the investigation is going to have to track it back to that original transaction when Dan Campbell, that is also the coach of the Detroit Lions. It's not the actual. We'll fact check this later.
This guy was just an ordinary dude.
Just an ordinary dude.
A construction job with his
buddies,
which makes it all the more.
But you picked a real challenging one, Josh, because you got two working class families here.
Exactly. Yeah.
You got so this one I'm going to try not to, because the other ones we've done, it's easy to sort of maybe see where the moral tale of this is. This one is a lot of gray here, I think.
It's very true. And, I lived in Toronto and I knew families, my neighborhood who ran these businesses, and they were working 15-hour days, and the full family was involved, and I had a lot of sympathy for those families. And not to paint everyone in, I think this family was a little more systemic in how they were approaching this lotto product. It wasn't like someone dropped a ticket and they picked it up, but
it's true. It is more systemic, and you're right. These businesses that are hard work. I had a friend who is actually his wife. Their business was running these stores, and it's a lot of work. It can do really well, but it's just you're there like 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
You usually keep it in the family, right? You don't hire external people, so it's a lot of the family that's involved, and it can be very intense. And when it comes to the thought process, right? So when they get to 12.5 million, that you just have to think: is that like we took this ticket, we didn't know it was going to be 12.5? Yeah. This one thing I was thinking about. What was that? Turned his nose up? Is that what he said? Whatever the OLG said when they didn't investigate a year later.
You like hold your nose.
Hold your nose.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm going to think that maybe, I don't know what happened. I haven't seen the fifth estate. This is the first time I'm hearing about this from you, and so the way we work here. That I would, if I were them, I would have wanted the OLG to act in that year, because they've had 9 years living in a $2.5 million house with fleets. We've established more than 3 cars and a life built around this lottery winning, right? And again, I'm not trying to be an apologist for their actions, but also for them, we're going to get into the consequences, but they just that gets taken away. It's like almost like Cinderella. It all falls apart for them.
If I had this ticket, in my mind, I'd be like, well, I'll just try to cash it and see if the OLG lets me, then I guess it's legal. Part of me would justify it and be like, well, surely there are guardrails.
It was one free ticket. One thing we do really well here, and this is what I learned from the Certified Fraud Examiner's course. Shout out to the course.
Yeah.
And I can say this because I am a CFE, is that sometimes when we look at these fraud cases, and there are obviously ones that are really like the Amish one, for example, or you can really like, oh, that's really bad. But a lot of the times there's these moments that if you put yourself in that situation, like you're doing right now, it's like 1 out of 5 tickets. What does it matter? Yeah, it's man. Because what do you do? I mean, I had a certified fraud exam. I remember I had to look at the camera. Of course, I wouldn't. I would have immediately not taken one of the tickets. I'd given 5 of the tickets because I have to say that. But
like if my dad, if he worked at the store, was like, hey, son, take this ticket. It's a big winner. Don't ask me any questions about it. I'd be like, thank you, Dad. I don't have the same moral foundation as a certified fraud examiner, but I would be like, I won't ask. Wink. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think in my head I would
like the wink.
Something fishy was going on, but 12.5 mil, that's a lot.
It is.
And I would think, if there's any problem, they'll let me know.
The rationalization would be, it was like, what's a free ticket? You know, by the way, when you started talking about the story, I have found, and this is why I practice mindfulness for many reasons. So one is when you get caught behind someone in a grocery store or at Variety Plus that's going through that whole, they got 1,000 tickets, they haven't done it through online or any other way, and you're like, I'm gonna be here for 15 minutes. I have to get the thing from the convenience store, so I'm gonna listen to that ring. And then what happens? They win a few free tickets.
Yeah.
It's the same transaction. They do it there.
Yeah.
And you're just stuck in an infinite line. So that's my thoughts went there. But like one ticket, like $2.
Yeah. Yeah. And the guy who collected his 4 free tickets, he was probably like, oh, great, I won something. Never thought of.
The Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions would have counted.
We can trust that. Yeah. Yeah.
For the NFL fans out there,
yeah,
he's a really big guy. I don't think you would have. You would have messed around with Dan Campbell, and it's not Dan Campbell. I'm pretty sure.
So we're back to this mystery ticket. So the OLG is now facing pressure by this report to find the true winner. They launch a public search for the true winner of the mystery ticket. Garth, go ahead and open up image 3.
Because that is also going to be quite a journey, because I'm not even sure how that would... Okay, which I'm looking at Wonka's golden ticket. Greetings to you, the lucky finder of this golden ticket from Mr. Willy Wonka.
This just made me think of Charlie the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, I thought the OLG used some Wonka thing. I thought this is from the case. I'm like, this looks like from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
It would have been more exciting had they done that. But no, what they did was they put out a hotline number. And Garth, how many calls would you guess the OLG received from potential claimants for this golden ticket? Now, this is 7 years later.
7 years later. So what are we looking at? 2010?
Yeah, this is 2010.
I might have called in. I don't know.
Did you buy a ticket that year?
No, but I might have called in. Just to say it. Just to say it. How are you doing these checks? I would imagine many calls, a fleet of calls.
It was more than a fleet.
More than a fleet. You want me to put a number on it? You have a number?
Throw a number out there.
50,000.
Oh, well, the OLG call received a modest. Remember, we're dealing with Canadians. These are.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
These are
a lot of people would have been like, I was there. I was in. It was St. Catharines, right?
St. Catharines.
I was in St. Catharines. I was in Niagara Falls.
I don't think they said St. Catharines. They launched a public search. I don't remember the criteria of how they said.
I still feel like 50,000 would have been a good number, but in Canada, maybe we're just so honest. The number is much less.
The number was a little less. It was 661 calls.
We're not going to take advantage of the fact that the OLG is putting out an open call for $12.5 million if you were in the vicinity of a variety store. Because I don't, how would they even verify that? But anyway, you're going to tell me, I'm sure.
They had a system. They had a new electronic tracking system called the DART system. So investigators Rick Boo and Lisa Bullock analyzed ticket sales to identify a unique spending habit and purchase pattern of the true winner. This is a fairly new thing they developed for this instance.
This is cool stuff. It's like data analytics, okay?
And you know what, Dan Campbell, he didn't bother to call.
Dan Campbell wasn't one of the 600 people?
It's been 7 years, family man, is busy. He'd heard about the search for the true winner, but he just didn't think that much of it. After all, it was from a ticket, from 2003. He just didn't think to call until late in 2010. Dan Campbell's terminally ill sister urged him to call. And Campbell said she was lethargic, but she sat up and she looked at me and said, call. It's your money. And later she pressed him again and saying, make sure you call. It's your money. And the next day she passed away. Oh, I don't mean to get mystical here, but what do you make of that? A relative who was in and out of a coma wakes up with some kind of a sixth sense, and her last request is for you to make a call. Are you going to make that call?
You got to make the call. You got to make the call. But she had an inkling that was the ticket, or she
wasn't even fully conscious for a lot of this last period. And this was like her clarity moment. There was something in her that connected her brother to like this hotline.
Okay, so yeah, you got to make the call if your terminally ill sister on her last wishes tells you to make the call. Dan seems reluctant. He doesn't think that this is happening. Or I don't know. It also seems a little apathetic to it, but maybe he isn't. He just doesn't think that he's the winner of this 12.5 million.
She wouldn't have called. He said he was only prompted by his sister's one of her last requests. To honor her, he decided to make that call. So he calls the OMG. He leaves a message about the potential Super 7 prize. So a couple months later, early 2011, the Ontario police contacts Dan Campbell for an interview because they had asked him a bunch of questions. Where do you buy your tickets? Where do you normally cash them? A lot of it hung on the fact that where he cashed them was across from his house, which was, they were able to trace his buying patterns. So the OPP calls him. He undergoes multiple meetings with the police. And then they take him on a 2-day ride-along tour because he was with his buddies doing construction at various places around the province.
Right.
And so they just took him on a ride-along. Well, where did you normally buy tickets in this town? And he'd point them out. And he'd be like, oh, yeah, I go here. And anyway, they really spent a lot of time doing their due diligence. And they recalled his, detailed purchase habits and locations, including that Variety Plus store run by Kenneth Chung, family based in Burlington.
They must not have, with the OLG's announcement about the 12.5 million, I can't imagine they would have announced. They might have announced St. Catharines. I don't even know.
They weren't that specific.
So yeah, they definitely wouldn't have said anything about the variety store, right? Because that's why that announcement, probably that's why we have 600 people, because it's vague enough that is like, if I'm going to call it, like, what am I going to say, right? But if they give too much information, then you're going to get people that may have been around St. Catharines or in that area. So this is how they're trying to figure out if Dan really knows.
They were really
facing it.
And after being interviewed by the police, and finally he understood that he was 100% the rightful winner, Dan Campbell was explicitly warned not to tell a soul, not even his friends who shared the ticket. So they interviewed him. They were driving him around. He was basically saying, guys, like, level with me. Like, what are we looking at here? I've answered all your questions. They even had his work history, a binder.
Did he know at this point that he was like how this happened?
He asked the cops, well, what's going on? Am I the winner? And they said, you know what? You're 100% the winner. Because we've talked to all these other people that they got maybe 10% of the criteria. You got 100% of the criteria.
Wow,
so he knew, and he wasn't able to tell anyone. So this was still 2011. At the time, Dan was broke. He was unemployed at the time. He needed a loan. He approached his friend, Jim Rennie, and he asked, this was one of the friends who he would go in on the lotto pool with. Yeah. And he asked his friend Jim to borrow $3,000. And though Jim later stated it was $2,500. So Jim asked when Dan would pay him back, and Dan famously replied, I'm not going to pay you back. And Jim, knowing that Dan had a quirky sense of humor and was broke, was upset by this. And so overwhelmed by the temptation and his need for a loan, Dan then broke the police's confidentiality order and revealed his secret to Jim. And Jim still didn't believe him, thinking it was a joke. He even offered to get the money from the ATM, still not taking Dan seriously. But after 10 to 15 minutes of convincing, he finally convinced his friend. To prove his story, Dan had to call one of the investigating officers who had previously informed that he would try to borrow money from Jim if Jim didn't believe him. Anyway, the officer gave Jim the badge, and anyway, they eventually convinced the friend, even though Jim initially thought it was like Dan's mom that was pretending to be the investigator.
Yeah, because it's a hard story to believe, right? Like 11 years, this group ticket that you never got, like none of them ever thought they were a lottery winner, so this would have never been in their horizon. And all of a sudden, Dan Campbell, not of the Detroit Lions, is saying we're millionaires.
Right.
What's interesting is, I don't know how much detail you have of this, but I am curious because they have to know on the day that other customers came into Variety Plus, that they were probably other customers that won free tickets. That ticket is Dan's and not someone else's.
Yeah, they were able to 100% verify it.
Huh.
And it was based on
11 years later, but
Yeah, it was based on like really specific criteria of just like where he bought tickets, where he cashed them, whether he paid in cash, whether someone used a credit card, whether how long they usually took between buying a ticket and cashing it. Like they had enough data points to 100% identify this.
Wow. So he is the $12.5 million
Yeah.
winner. Hopefully they adjust it for inflation.
Well, that's a good point. And they did.
Oh, okay.
So this revelation, he finally convinced his friend, and it led to all 7 friends celebrating a little preliminary, even though they still had to keep it a secret from everyone else for a little while. But in January 27, 2011, Dan Campbell and his 6 co-workers are officially recognized as the rightful winners. They collect the 12.5 million prize Canadian plus interest, which amounts to 14.85 million. That's about 2.1 million difference. So they actually like earned more. You know what I mean? Like,
Wait, the interest was 14 million?
or sorry, an extra like 2.1.
Oh, so the total amount they got was 14. Yeah, so that's
was
good.
total. So 7 years after the draw, they got a little interest, and the OLG holds a press conference celebrating the discovery of the true winners. Now go ahead and open image 4.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited about this. Even though, my mind is going to the chunks.
We're gonna come back.
I know. I'm thinking about them.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that. Oh, there they are. So there's the OLG check, 14.85 million. Do you know who's Dan, I guess?
Dan is. Let's see.
I thought Dan was going to be an older guy.
They're looking kind of alike to me in this picture.
They do look a little bit alike.
I'm gonna have to circle back on which one is Dan.
But whoever Dan is in this picture, I thought for whatever reason, I thought he was older. So what had happened? He would have been in his.
They're young guys. And
Yeah.
this ties into my next question. So put yourself in these guys' shoes. How do you think they felt about their winnings being delayed by 7 years? As a young person, how would you feel in that situation? If you would have won this in your 20s versus like your early 30s.
That's a sliding doors moment, right?
Yeah.
It just depends on how your life has gone over those times.
Sure.
If maybe for some of these guys, they had the family, they're comfortable with their construction. They're all in construction, right? And, they're content. And then maybe another one ended up not so good and would have really liked the money because they could have prevented certain things or changed the direction. So I think it depends on the way their life went. I imagine some of them may have been okay. Maybe it was a good time to get the money at that point. But some of them might have said, if I had this money in 2003, my life would have been completely different.
The general sentiment was, I think these guys were just generally in agreement. They were okay with the delay.
That picture, when I saw that picture, that's what I thought. Because they look genuinely happy, but if there was a person in there that had that resentment for I think you would have seen it. The picture was just like, it's like they won it that day for the first time.
They talked about like their friends, including Mike Maddox and Dan McGregor, expressed a surprising lack of rancor and were even grateful for the delay. Maddox said,
Grateful for the delay.
Yeah, I was actually kind of glad that it happened years later.
Yeah.
A sentiment echoed by McGregor, who added, yeah, me too. I was in a different spot in my life.
Yeah.
No kids, more mature now, different priorities. And McGregor elaborated that if he had won earlier, probably would have been in Vegas blowing.
It'd be the Hangover. There'd be Mike Tyson. Right. There'd be a tiger. The money's blown in 2 days. Yeah. So the Chunks did them a service.
So back to the Chunks. And I can't believe this. We have to flash forward 7 years.
What is happening? We need a timeline. We need a graphic or something here.
It is.
What? But wait a minute now. Before you take me into 7 years, did they take the money away from the Chunks?
Well, they awarded the 7 friends the rightful money, but everything with the Chunks has been in court and delayed.
Oh, I see. So they're trying to get the assets back, and it's all been fought over. I see.
Finally, in April 2018, Kenneth Chung, Junchil Chung, father, and Kathleen Chung are found guilty in the Milton courtroom for the roles in the lottery scam. So Kenneth, the owner manager, is found guilty of stealing lottery tickets over an 8-month period, while his father, Junchil, is found guilty of stealing the winning $12.5 million ticket, and with the daughter Kathleen, of possessing stolen property and defrauding the OLG. So what the trial revealed was that this was not a one-off thing like we talked about. This was more a systemic theft of lotto tickets over a period of about 8 months. It just happened that one of those tickets hit big. Otherwise, they might have gotten away with it without all the scrutiny of this $12.5 million ticket. So Garth, they were found guilty. What do you imagine their sentences might be?
Did they get fined criminally of something?
So yeah, the charges were specifically
'Cause, yeah, I guess it could be something along the lines of
possessing stolen property,
Yeah.
defrauding the OLG.
yeah, so
was
that's
for Kathleen.
yeah, that's significant because that's theft.
Yeah, yeah.
It's almost like a bank robbery in a sense, right?
In a sense, I mean, it's. I don't know if they would differentiate that much.
Oh
Like, it wasn't
boy!
that money.
I mean, they were taking a lottery tickets. Why rate was? I'm curious about why it started.
They were pretty tight-lipped on stuff like that. It was pretty hard to get
Oh.
specifics.
Yeah, I mean, boy, because now do you know what happened to their assets? Were they things were taken away from them?
Well,
I'm always thinking.
I will share a little bit.
Okay, I don't want to step on your toes there because I always think about this, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine that. It's like when you do something like this, you live in fear you're going to get caught. So it's not. This is another thing about doing something like this. Sure, they hit the 12.5 million, but like the years, like every year, I always think about Breaking Bad and Bryan Cranston's character, right? Walter White. Like you just wait to get caught. You're just stuck in anxiety. I would imagine
15 years.
Yeah, like that's not like they get the $2.5 million home. They have the fleet of cars. But it's not like who that couple was that we did. I forget their name now. The K's, right? I think I feel like they enjoyed it.
Right. They weren't reveling in the doing.
Yeah.
Like this was like a one-time.
Yeah. I feel like I have no idea. I feel like there was a lot of anxiety. And then when it all got revealed in 2011, that must have sucked.
Yeah.
For them. And then I'm sure a lot of assets got taken away. That doesn't mean that there isn't a punishment for the crime. I just feel bad in some ways that they probably really super regret this whole thing ever happening. So I imagine maybe there's some jail time. I don't know.
It was a very high-profile case. A lot of eyeballs on it. So the father, John Cho Chung, is sentenced to 7 years in prison.
Wow.
Kathleen Chung, 4 years. And Kenneth Chung, the son who managed the place, 10 months. Now, the judge rejects call for conditional sentences, emphasizing deterrence. The OLG files a victim impact statement, and the court hears that approximately $8 million in assets have been seized, with the Attorney General seeking a total of $14.85 million.
Whoa, wait a minute now. So they tacked the interest onto them.
Yeah, the same amount.
Oh
that was awarded to
boy.
these guys.
Okay, all right. Don't mess with the OLG.
And then the family was freed on bail pending appeal. So again, they didn't really get jail time. Finally, March 30th, 2021,
2021.
the Ontario Court of Appeal overturns Kenneth Chung's 2018 acquittal on theft and possession of the prize-winning ticket. So he was given basically a slap on the wrist in just a few months. And then they overturned that appeal. Like they basically are recharging him with the more serious crimes to balance out. So he's getting more fraud charges. They ordered a new trial for him on fraud. The appeals court ended up reducing Kathleen Chung's sentence to 3 years from 4, but otherwise they upheld the convictions for the sentences for this family and decided them back. Crime doesn't pay. So they all went to jail.
They did go to jail.
Probably 3 to 4 years at least, maybe a little more for the dad who stole the original ticket.
Yeah.
So conclusion though, we're going to end on a positive.
Are we?
We are. The one
It's
thing,
a lot to process this one.
One thing the law.
I'm not mad at anybody here. I want to be mad at somebody. So there's pure emotions of anger when it comes to fraud, but I can see how the Chung family did wrong here, but it's hard to feel bad for them. Again, the house, and they didn't create an orphanage or send money back to South Korea, or maybe they did, but not all of it.
Right. They weren't stealing from individuals. They were stealing from this sort of faceless organization.
And
wasn't run super well.
And then it was a blue collar thing. Yeah. But again, anyway, it is a fraud. They are facing the consequences, but it's hard to have a blood boil for what they did.
Yeah. Here's the main impact of this case, in my view, and Dan Campbell said that he actually felt immense pride in their story because it led to changes in the OLG practices. Yes. Protecting others from similar fraud. Yeah. So he says, I think I'm more proud of that than anything, that it won't happen to anyone else. Even though they want all this money, he and his friends insist they haven't really changed. They were all the same guys.
Changed. Dan Campbell's not the same. This is everyone changes.
But what did change was the OLG. Mm-hmm. So they implemented all the things we see now. Mandatory, you have to sign your ticket. You got customer-facing screens.
Right.
They can't hold on to your ticket. They have to return all tickets. Stricter insider win policies, improving public awareness, and then these scanners it really shook up.
That's because these are all internal controls, right? And as we talked about, when it comes to the fraud triangle, it's opportunity. The rationalization here was the toughest one, right? That's why we have trouble when we put ourselves in their shoes to say, man, what will we do? The incentive, that's why in the 8 months, it'd be interesting to know why they started to take out the 1 or 2 free tickets. Could have been financial trouble, could have been just they didn't think it was a big deal. But where my blood boils, it's great that the OLG did all this, but they actually, from what you're telling me, OLG actually had this right in year 1. 12 months later, what, turn my nose up at it or whatever the thing he said.
Yeah.
Hold their nose. What is that? Because I think they understood that there's a connection to Variety Plus, and this is very suspicious. And I think they just stopped for various reasons. But because they did that, they have a bunch of changes. But 2 families, again, because of a wrong act of the Trumps, but still, I don't know. These are good changes by the OLG, but I think, to be honest with you, it should have been pretty obvious.
If they're doing their job, she wouldn't have gotten that money.
No.
It would have saved her and everybody a lot.
Well, think about this too. I'm not, okay, the OLG, I always want to make sure we're not offending, because I live in Ontario, and it's not that I played the lottery, but
no, they're pretty transparent about this.
Will the OLG come after me if I'm bad enough them?
No, this is part of their narrative now, is we change things.
The challenge is, sure, they change things, but also look at the horizon of how long it took. Because to me, when that quote came out about the nose thing, which I cannot remember exactly the way you said it, there was an opportunity to say, why would someone say that? Why would we turn our nose up at this? Because there is a store owner that we can see by a few degrees of separation that has won. That should have been something in the policy, or upon investigating, they say there's a gap here. We don't really know what to do when there's 3 or 4 relatives removed from a Variety Plus. And that's not great, because it doesn't look good for the OLG that any variety store owner wins. Yeah. So I thought that would have been a lot speedier, because the changes at the OLG came out with the conclusion that Dan Campbell. So then I need to be angry. That's what I'm trying to say, Josh, because I need some anger to come out. And it's that the OLG, I think, didn't react quickly enough to maybe not find Dan Campbell, the stuff of finding Dan Campbell. That's amazing stuff. Great on. There's a lot of sleuthing and data analytics, but did it need to go this way?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was messy, and it ended up costing 7 years of these guys getting their money, and the whole thing was a big mess. But in the end, they got their money. The chums were penalized, and the OLG did change. So it's like a pivotal case. But it was very messy, unsatisfying.
I like how we've gone to we had the gold heist, fruitcake fraud. This one is more like a Paul Anderson film. This one has those complexity, some nuance here, because the initial taking of the ticket, but I still am blown away that it ended up being 12.5 million on the ticket that they took.
Yeah.
Right? You're right. Absolutely. They were looking, it's almost like petty cash theft is basically what they were doing, right?
Right.
What I've learned, the certified fraud examiner, skimming is the term. They were just skimming, just taking a little bit off. And it would have been easy to hide, especially if the customer doesn't identify that the ticket isn't given to them.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a $5 here, $10 here. It's wrong for sure. But when we talk about petty cash, so if this had been petty cash, and they had been discovered, they would not have gone to jail.
Right.
They would have not been in the public eye. They would have been reprimanded. It was because it's a weird case, because it's almost like they stole something that they thought had no value or very little value or some value, and it ended up being $12.5 million. It's
they meant to steal the petty cash, and they ended up stealing a briefcase full of cocaine.
I like how your mind went to cocaine.
And then, what do you do with it? I guess they didn't give it back. They had opportunity.
Yeah.
And, there was something about
But
that.
then now you're in I'm not defending them.
Who are they going to give it to?
That's what I'm saying. So once they know they have the $12.5 million ticket, do they throw it away? Because that's the only thing. That's the only thing they can do. Because everything else will be traced, so they have to burn it and say nobody won the 12. But then, if I understand the OLG, they know there's a winning number right there.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And I think they can track them better than they could do in 2003. I'm just saying. I just see how this was not meant to be a Grand Theft Auto.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another filmmaker that makes these films. Get it? You brought a case that is not so straightforward. It's got pieces. Punch Drunk Love is amazing. My favorite films. And I feel you brought that level of complexity because my brain is working around all these characters and the moral challenges
I'm
of
glad
this
to
one.
hear you kind of talking about this because initially I was like, oh yeah, some crooks and some good guys. But then I'm hearing you talk about this and it's like, you know what? I could have been this crook. I'm just like,
It's the really odd fraud because it was not meant to be this big. It wasn't meant to be 12.5 million.
Yeah.
And they got the consequence. I mean, obviously they bought the homes, so they spent the money, but yeah, it just brought another timeline that I think they never would have predicted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, obviously the message is do not buy lottery tickets, right? That's our message. Or buy lottery tickets. I'm not sure which one.
Buy them more than ever.
Buy them more.
Sign those things.
Sign them.
Check them.
Oh boy.
Our listeners, we want you to leave comments on this. Tell us what you think, because this is a complex one. And speaking of listeners, we do have a question from one of our listeners. Garth, are you ready? As
I'm ready. I love
certified
questions.
product investigator. Now, this may be a gotcha question. So
Already with a gotcha question?
maybe you can answer, maybe you can't. But
Might take my license away.
thinking of just generally lotto stuff, I'm always curious, and our listener, meaning my wife, this question. She asks, what advice would you have to someone who wins the lottery? Should you immediately go into hiding or assume a new identity? Do you park the money in an offshore account? Do you look for tax loopholes? Just continue living as an outwardly normal life? What would you advise a client who has received a sudden and unexpected windfall?
Wow, because there's a lot of non-accounting questions there. There's a lot of behavior questions. Would you change who you are?
She sees you for what you are, which is a person who can offer advice in many arenas.
Oh wow!
So you
definitely,
choose which
you
ones
should
you want to
definitely
do.
make sure you crush anybody that's ever wronged you in life.
Write that down.
Write that down. Crush. You have the money. You have the resources now. You make a list and you find a way, like Count of Monte Cristo, that's a great revenge tale of a person who got a ton of money and spent all of it trying to exact revenge. And so revenge is number one. Yeah, obviously, if I'm being a little bit plain vanilla about it, if you do win the lottery, and it's funny because it depends on who wins. Sometimes it's not the financial literacy isn't there for the person who wins, because what will happen, just like an athlete who gets a contract, there's a lot of people that come out of the woodworks, right? There's a lot of people that are interested. There's a lot of, not just friends and family, but those that might want to have you invest. So it is really good to get a financial advisor, right? If it's this amount of money, if it's a lot, if it's a substantial amount of money that you need to plan for, and you don't have the financial expertise, there's a lot of people who will want to influence the use of the money. So it's the best thing to do is find an advisor that you trust that has credentials, a CPA, a CFA, whatever it might be, anybody that you can trust that has a sturdy reputation to help you plan it. Because that's where a lot of things have gone wrong for those that have won the lottery. Those that have spent it very quickly because they don't understand finances. They buy all these things, but then the operating costs behind the big house, the number of cars eats away at the lottery, and by 5 years, they're spent. Find a person you can trust. It's the same for athletes. They have that problem a lot.
Okay, well, good advice. So we're gonna conclude. We want to thank you for listening. Thanks to our show editor, Adam Galloway. Remember to subscribe. Leave us a comment about a fraud case you'd like us to discuss or comments on this case. You can email us at fraudcomplexpodcast@gmail.com with fraud cases on your mind.
This is a great way to, and I should also point out that I will eventually host again. You're doing a lot of work. You did a lot of work.
We're 2 for 2.
You did a lot of work. There's a copious amount of notes. You were, how many, 15 years of things?
What's more when you
7, Dan Campbell's. You did a lot of work. You're amazing, Josh. So I got to pull some weight here. I feel guilty now.
Don't feel good.
But not guilty enough to maybe take the lottery ticket away from you. A quick aside here. If you are a CPA or IRS agent looking for verifiable ethics hours for your continuing professional education requirements, which if I know you, and I'm not pointing at you, Josh. You're just in my direction. But all those CPAs and IRS agents out there, you will get your last minute CPE towards the end of the year in a panic, like a lot of people do. Well, you can get it, this course and the work that we're doing here at the Fraud Complex, as verifiable CPE by going to our website in the show notes below at onlinecpe.sharifconsulting.com. I got to figure out how to say my last name correctly. We'll figure it out, Josh. But we'll put it there so you can just know what the link is and you can click on it. There you'll find a verifiable version of this episode. So if you're going to Spotify or Apple, you get it for free. But if you go to the website I just read, you can get verifiable CPE that's good for your continuing education hours. You can meet your requirements while folding your laundry, driving, but I'll say it again every time, not necessarily at the same time.
Right.
Unless you're listening to it, maybe you could do it. But if you're watching and driving, that might be a problem. Or lying on your couch. That sounds like a nice thing to do. Listen to us lying on your couch, listen to the lotto fraud, and just after you listen to it, sit and think about what would happen if you had that situation upon you. I don't know. I'm going to be thinking about this forever. You can use the coupon code. We're still using the coupon code fruitcake.
Sells fruitcake.
Because that's also on me because I'm not changing this. So fruitcake is the code. By the way, I'm watching The Pit. Have you seen The Pit?
Yeah.
Did you know one of the patients calls? I don't remember Noah Wiley from ER, but I can't remember his name on the show. Fruitcake.
Wait, that's his nickname?
That patient calls. I just watched it. That's why. I think he was using it in a way that probably not.
Who calls who fruitcake?
This woman who's in the ER, who seems to just always be in the ER, she was in a wheelchair.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, now I'm hearing the word fruitcake, and I'm like, oh, that's, like I said, a call it to our show. I've lost the plot of this promo. So fruitcake to get 25% off the verifiable version. We are a NASBA, Sharif Consulting is a NASBA sponsor. We just went to a conference there, and it is a lot of work to get these episodes, what they call NASBA-fied. But once they are, you can listen to us and get your CPE credits for ethics, behavioral ethics.
Way to go.
Way to go. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Gareth.
Do we need to look at the camera? Till the next time.
Hello and welcome. My name is Josh Sager.
Oh, that was me.
This is always the biggest hurdle.